Greetings, 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 everyone. My name is Dr. Lakita, and we're coming live to you from the LDL Empowerment Institute, where we are spending the entire month of June honoring our fathers all across the country. And as is our custom, we are hoping that we can bring some motivational, inspirational, and God-fearing information that will allow you and I to learn a little bit more about the things that fathers, men have done over the last 50 years. And I do say 50 years because today we're going to have a really powerful topic about the Blue Angels, the Naval Blue Angels. And we have someone right here in our Zoom land, in our Facebook land, that will be talking about his incredible story of being one of 12 siblings, coming from a farm background, and a whole lot of wonderful other journey types of stuff, to share with us what it looks like and feels like to be a Blue Angel pilot. So will you do me a huge favor? Go get your brothers, go get your sisters, because we are getting ready to look at a show. Get your popcorn too. We'll give you like 5.2 seconds to get your popcorn. And while our lovely Miss Brenda Moppers is going to come on and share a little bit more about our guests, I want you to get ready, share with some young people that whatever they have in their mind, they can do it. My favorite quote is, change only happens when what you know is no longer good enough. And so with that in mind, we turn it on over to Miss Brenda Moppins.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lakita. I am so excited to have this opportunity to introduce this amazing man who I had the pleasure of meeting last week as well. I think about, as I was growing up, my mother made sure that we were at the Navy base every year watching the Blue Angels, and it was just fascinating. So as you talk about flying, I can visualize being right there on the grounds watching. So I'm grateful to have this opportunity and this honor to share the bio with all of Facebook and as well as the Zoom land. So let me share a little bit about Captain Donnie Cochran, who was born July 6, 1954, on a farm near Pelham, Georgia. He graduated from Savannah State College in June 1976, earning a degree in civil engineering technology and commission in the United States Navy. He is recognized as a leader in both the military and business sectors, who inspires high performance in individuals and organizations. Donnie's achievements include the dual honors of being the first African-American pilot to fly in the Blue Angels, the United States Navy Flight Demonstration Squadron. He is a leader of a fighter squadron flying off the decks of aircraft carriers and professor of naval science at Florida A&M and Florida State Universities. Donnie was also recognized as the 1989 Black Engineer of the Year. After transitioning from the military, he spent 3 years at United Parcel Services, UPS, as a flight training supervisor, and 10 years as a leader in the business of aviation department of the Coca-Cola Company. Donnie is routinely invited to speak to organizations regarding leadership, team building, high performance, and adapting to changing business conditions. In unique and engaging presentations and conversations, Donnie shares the lessons that have allowed him to succeed in situations that demand precision, teamwork, high performance, and flawless execution. In an honest and moving delivery of world-class content, Donnie motivates individuals to achieve success in both their professional careers and personal lives. He also shares some of the hard lessons on leadership and team behaviors that can cause an individual or an organization to fail. Donnie has been married for 30 years with 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. He was married to the lovely Miss Marvinet. I hope I said that correctly. Okay, so congratulations on all your high-flying achievements, and welcome to the LDL platform. And I introduce you to the audience, Mr. Captain Donnie Cochran. Welcome to the platform. And I now hand it back over to Donnie.
Thank you. I'm glad to be.
Now, Dr. Lakita, if you can.
We are so excited to have you. And I am like a little kid in a candy store, Captain Cochran, because my thoughts are preceding me so fast because I've got so many questions and things to ask you. But let me share one thing that I thought was really interesting so people will get an understanding about the historical aspect of the Blue Angels. One of the things that I read was that the Blue Angels was formed originally in April of 1946 as the Navy Flight Exhibition Team. They changed their whole entire name to the Blue Angels after visiting the New York nightclub, the Blue Angel, also known as the Blue Angel Supper Club. The team was first introduced as the Blue Angels during an air show in July of that same year of 1946. Robert Bob Clark in 1947, he was the flight leader. He was Lieutenant Commander Robert Bob Clark. He introduced the now famous Blue Angels diamond formation. With the new formation that they now do, the team introduced two other new maneuvers, the diamond loop and the diamond barrel roll, two maneuvers that are still performed today. The selection process is what I was intrigued about, Captain Cochran. The training that needs to go for those that would like to be Blue Angels is very grueling. Each applicant has to do more than 1,200 flight hours before even being considered. That is a lot of hours. And I think that that's good enough to share about the Blue Angels. So we just want to welcome you in all that you are. And so thank you so much for being on our platform.
I am very blessed to be here and looking forward to sharing my lessons learned and some of those thoughts that I think all fathers have in regards to how to be a good father. My journey in the military certainly has brought out some of those lessons that I learned way back on the farm. And I can tell you lots of the leadership and lots of the team building, lots of the fatherhood lessons learned were all learned from a great example that I had, which was my dad.
And let's talk a little bit about Captain Cochran. Let's just jump right into it. This whole entire month, we've been fortunate, blessed, and inspirationally encouraged by the powerful men who said yes to our invitation to be talking on this platform about the power of a father. We've had series where we've had fathers who've had tragedy and loss. They've also explored grit. Some have been fatherless. We've had two NFL players as well on here. So shout out to our 49ers, even though I'm not a 49ers fan, but we're so grateful for them being on here. And we got some really great individuals that will close us out for this month. But today, I wanted to highlight something that you shared in our pre-interview. Now, you're one of 12 siblings, 12 children. And there was, if I'm correct, I believe there are 9 boys. Is that correct?
That's
Okay,
correct.
there are 9 boys. So your father wasn't playing any games. I believe you shared with me that he had a 3rd grade education. And I think it's interesting. I think he was trying to create his own workforce, is what he was trying to do.
Absolutely. When you have a farm, you need help,
You need
and
help.
that's exactly right. And he created his own workforce.
And the only reason why I said that is because my pastor, and who's also my mentor, he's one of 11. And his father came from Mississippi with only a 4th grade education and came all the way out here. And like, although he didn't have a farm, he had all those children, but he created in all the houses that he ended up buying later on and purchasing, he created all of this organic like farm stuff, and they were selling it all throughout Gilroy and all this place. So I thought it was very powerful to see the synergy of the two lifestyles. So let's start. You are a father, but before you became a father, you were a son. What thing did you remember powerfully about being a son?
Okay. First of all, I had mentors along the way, which was my older brothers.
Mm.
In addition to that, one of the things you learn in the military is leadership by example. For me, I had the wonderful example of not only my father, but also my older brothers. But it stems from watching and observing my dad. And one of the things that was really unique about him was very. I mean, he was old school, and he really didn't come out and say, "Hey, I love you," or that. But his actions spoke much louder than his words in terms of sharing the affection and love for his kids. And so I was blessed from that regard. The other aspect of it was he was always there for us. And one of the complaints I hear from my kids, especially when I was in the Navy, was, "Hey, you go on these long deployments and I don't get to know who you are." And that's a challenge when you're in careers that take you away for extended periods of time. Uh, you really can't make up. What you can do, however, is make sure that the time you spend together is quality time. And so I learned that by observing my dad. The fact that he was there uh, made great example in terms of just the way he went about doing his job. He was an honest man, dedicated to working hard. I mean, I learned the meaning of dedication and hard work on the farm. And when I joined the Navy, I thought I was on vacation. I said, "Hey, when the hard work is going to start?" Simply because we worked basically 6 days a week. We had Sundays off to go to church, and my dad was strict in terms of discipline. I mean, you can't allow 9 boys to get out of hand, so he had to, do what he had to do to keep us in check, which was, a few well-placed whippings kept everybody in check, that's for sure. But it was a wonderful way of growing up. The other thing that I got to say is because we own our own farm, I
I love the way,
remember
just
early.
stop for a moment. I
Okay,
just love the way that sounds.
yeah.
Because we owned our own farm. Doesn't that just have a great, say it with me, y'all? Because we owned our own farm. We got to say it in our spirit. That just sounds so right. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Right, right. Because what it did for us was, and I didn't realize this at the time till I was about the eighth or ninth grade, what the meaning of that was. But he kept us busy. I mean,
Mm,
we did all sorts of work, and I mean, it was in the summers. It was typically working sun up to sundown, and
mm.
but it was completely doable. And at the time, I was learning discipline. I was learning leadership. I was learning teamwork. I was learning all of those skills that I had to utilize as a leader, both as a father and also in the military. All those traits, how to motivate. In the heat of the day, for instance, if we were working in the sun, uh, harvesting okra, that was one of our big crops. Well, we would get wet 3 times a day. We would get wet in the morning because of the dew on the plants. And about midday, we'll get wet because it's hot and you sweat. And then in the afternoon, you get wet because of a thunderstorm. So we had incentive. We figured out that, hey, if we were working hard enough, we would be completed before the afternoon thunderstorm.
So let
And
me
yeah, go ahead.
so one of the things I think is really interesting that everyone should know, and you mentioned your father just a few moments ago. I think you said something like, "My dad didn't have but a third grade education, but he had a PhD in wisdom."
Yes,
Yeah, I love that.
absolutely.
I never forgot that, and I think that anyone that can amass the kinds of things that he did, I mean, it just it's mind-boggling to me. And I think one of the things that I sort of connected the dots with is when you said that when you finally went to the Navy, you thought you're getting paid to do nothing because you were so accustomed to working so hard with great work ethics.
Right.
So as a son, you learned work ethics from your father by him telling you and by showing you. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
He was out front, and especially early on because we were not old enough to do much. But later on, he made a transition to delegating, which was exactly what you got to do as a leader.
Mm,
And from that standpoint, what I really appreciate was um, the multiple streams of income that he developed in order to enable him to support his family. And the other thing was, keep in mind, this is the 50s and 60s, and this is a tough time to grow up in the South. And because we own our farm, we were less exposed to some of the real challenges that a lot of us face. Now, I'm not saying we didn't experience those; we certainly did. But we didn't necessarily have to work for anyone else. We did it because my dad believed in the good neighbor policy in terms of the local farmers in the area. So we would go and work for other farmers who were white, and he was able to balance those relationships so that he could take care of his family, which was I think critical for us. Having the insights that I think all my brothers and sisters have, in terms of all of us, by the way, graduated from high school, and that's a significant achievement there. And 8 of us went on to college and graduated from college. About 3 or 4 of us have master's degree, and have one sister working on a doctorate. So they did really well. And I always say to myself, if I can do as well for my 4 kids as my dad did for 12, I think I would be doing quite well.
And I love the whole aspect of the sonship and being able to utilize your father as your mentor. But I also love the fact that you had the sort of the intergenerational familia experience, meaning you were able to look to your siblings, your brothers, your sisters as co-collaborators and being strong in being the man that you are today, as well as the well-reared son. And speaking of that, I think it's really important. Well, let me go back. I want to ask this question. What made you want to be in the Navy? That's a question
Okay.
that I had lingered in my head.
Well, that's a great question because as I was working out there on those farms, guess what? There were aircraft that overflew the farm where I grew up. And we must have been living in an area where there was a military training route because we would typically see Navy, Army, Marines, Air Force. We see civilian aircraft, crop dusters, that sort of thing. And keep in mind that, it's 80 and 90 degrees of heat out there, and you would look up and you would see these Navy airplanes and Air Force airplane overflying. It was really cool. They were jet airplanes, and that excited me. And I thought to myself, it would be really cool to be up in there in one of those airplanes. Then
Whoa.
so that was an inspiring aspect of growing up on the farm. Is I actually had a chance to see the airplanes, and that inspired me. I never saw a Blue Angel air show until I was in the Navy. Be honest with
Really?
you. Right.
So
And
so how did so this is interesting. You saw the planes, desired to be in it, did
right,
not see a Blue Angels show until you got into the Navy.
right.
So how did you keep your dream connected to the reality of
Okay.
actually getting your own body in the angel's seat?
Well, to back up even further, what was really interesting was anything associated with aircraft flying off the ship excited me. And I thought that was the coolest thing until I did it the first time. Then all of a sudden I said to myself, what have I gotten myself into?
What
Because
was
at
it like?
first,
Can you explain? I mean, because it's not much runway from that
well,
ship.
it was a total rush to be able to, first of all, fly an airplane and then land on the ship. Before you actually land, you have to do touch and goes on the ship. And it was so exciting to be out there by yourself. They don't have anybody in the back seat. You by yourself, you come in, touch and go, and then you land. And when I landed, it was like a madhouse on the deck. There were airplanes, it was jet exhaust getting in my eyes, and I was like, oh my goodness, what have I gotten into? But by this time I'm committed to my career. I said, hey, I can't stop now. This goes with the territory. This is what I wanted to do. And then once you completed that, you had to do it at night. And I was like, oh my goodness, what's the world coming to? But it worked. The good news is, as you go through the training process, you get the necessary skills to be able to go out and do it safely. You have to know your limitations. You have to know the aircraft limitations and not exceed those, and have a certain amount of confidence in your ability to go out and do what you're trained to do. So for me, the desire was to fly Navy. I was very fortunate to be able to do that. But the way it started, the way I went from the farm to Navy was the ROTC program. My brother, who was a year ahead of me, he went to Savannah State. And I like to say this piece. the power of influence from the older siblings.
Mm,
Every one of my brothers and sisters went to college ahead of me.
mm.
Even
On.
though I had some challenges academically, I knew when I graduated, one of the things I was going to do was go to school. And I did not have necessarily have the financial wherewithal. I mean, there's 12 kids, and you know, we're all sort of have to figure that out. So he came back from his first year wearing the Navy uniform, the white uniform. He was getting ready to go to Peru. I hadn't been out of the state of Georgia, and I lived 60 miles to Florida line. So I was excited about traveling and all of those things that go with having your education partially paid for. And so I joined the ROTC program as a way of getting my education and a way of pursuing aviation because I didn't have the funding to go any other route. At the time, I hadn't figured out another way. And so, but the power was watching my older brothers and sisters do what they wanted to do,
Mm,
figuring out how to because we didn't have funding to support us, so we had to figure out ways to make that happen for ourselves. And
mm.
very fortunate to do that.
So speaking of that, you oftentimes speak and you do trainings and things of that nature on a variety of different things, particularly around encouraging and inspiring people to look at the aspects of being involved in the Naval Academy, as well as just really encouraging them to be strong-minded about whatever they desire to put their hands to and to see the fruition of that thing take place. You talk about the 5 C's. And so what we like to do just for a moment, want everybody in Facebook land to get ready for something. He's going to present to us a couple of slides, and then he's going to do a little bit of a show of an actual video where he is up in the air. So go get your popcorn, go get your brother, go get your sister, go get your aunties, your grandmas, and whoever else, your nanas, your meemaws, and whatever else y'all call yourselves. Go get it because we are getting ready to take a little sneak peek at what it looks like when you are committed to a thing. I mean, we just heard Captain Cochran said that, like, although he landed that pilot, that jet, he was like, okay, what did I get myself into? He already made the decision for the career. And for him, there was no turning back. So we would like for him to share with us some of the slides he have, and then we're going to go further along into our discussion. So Captain Cochran, if you can go ahead and share your screen regarding the 5 C's, we'll start there. And then
Okay.
from there, we'll go into the actual video of you being in that air.
Okay. Can you see my screen now?
We can see it now.
Oh,
I'm going to get off of
okay.
here and um, awesome. I can
Okay.
see the screen.
Let me just say this. I was not a Naval Academy graduate. I was a graduate of the Naval ROTC program at Savannah State University. What's interesting, the Navy in the 70s decided that they wanted to increase the number of African American officers in the Navy, so they created 5 Naval ROTC units at historically black colleges. And Savannah State was one, Prairie View was one, I think Baton Rouge, uh, school in Baton Rouge, Morris Brown, and North Carolina A&T, I think, are the 5 universities. But what you're seeing on the screen, let me transition. I was very fortunate to be selected to the team twice. My first tour, I was selected to, in 1986, I was flying the number 3 jet, which is right
Oh,
here.
and
Uh,
we actually can't see your screen. You
Oh,
might
you
need to
can't?
share it. Nope,
Okay,
not
let
yet.
me let me go back and make sure that you see it. Let me go to Zoom here. All right. Okay, share the screen. How about now? Oh,
Mm,
how about now?
yes, it's coming
Okay,
together.
okay, okay.
Yes.
In 1986,
Everyone, my name is Dr. Lakita, and we're coming live to you from the LDL in.
okay. How about now? Oh, how about now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. In 1986, I was selected to fly the number 3 jet. We were flying an aircraft different from this one. This is the F-18. So I flew the number 3 in 1986. In 1987, we transitioned to this airplane. And in order to accommodate an air show and transition to a new aircraft, they froze the team, which meant that I got an extra year. You normally get 2 years as a demo pilot and then you rotate off. But I ended up getting 3. The first 2 years were flying the number 3 jet, and that is called the left wing position. At the end of your second year, or flying the number 3, typically you rotate to number 4. And as you can see, and number 4 has the best seat in the house. He sees everything that's going on in front of him. And so I flew that for 1 year. And after that tour, I went back to the Real Navy in order to apply to fly the number 1 position. You have to have command experience. And what that means is you have to be commanding officer of an operational fighter squadron or squadron, a tactical squadron. And for me, I had command of Fighter Squadron 111, the Sundowners, and my squadron was an F-14 squadron, and we had a 12 airplane. We deployed with 9 aircraft on an aircraft carrier. And by the time my tour was over with, or just after I left left the squadron, um, the squadron won the Battle Efficiency Award in Safety for the F-14 squadron in the Pacific Fleet. So I was very proud of what the squadron did while I had command of it. So I was very fortunate to go back and go through a selection process and was selected to be flight leader for 18 months. So out of these 6 positions, I flew 3 of them, 3, 4, and 1. And as a result of that, there were some lessons learned on leadership, on teamwork or team building, and individual accountability, all of which I think are completely relatable to being a father, believe it or not, in terms of the traits that it takes to pull, to influence others, to get dedication, all of those things. And I refer to those as the 5 C's. But I have a couple other slides I want to go through real quick, and then we'll get to that. Here is a simple quote here. When you work on your plan works on you. And what that simply means is if you are putting the time and effort into planning what you want to do in life, if you write it down, there's power in writing down your goals and working toward those goals. And keep in mind when you work on your plan, look at the second part of that statement. Your plan will work on you. And for me, my goal was to fly airplanes. And I started developing that plan by watching my older brother. The first step was I had to get commission. I had to have a college degree in order to be a pilot, because that's one of the requirements in the military to be a pilot. There are other ways, but I was not familiar with those. So that's important to remember that. The next thing I want to show you is this is a video, and I want to share with you what you're going to hear and what you're going to see. This is me right here. My call sign is boss. It's a traditional call sign. Whenever you're the flight leader for number 1, you're called boss. And when I was flying number 3 and 4, my call sign was big time. That's one of those call signs I created for myself. But you're going to hear there's a dialogue going on between the pilots, and everything is generated from the number 1 pilot. So what you'll hear is something like this. You'll hear me say, we're clear for takeoff. The winds are calm. Check the park and break off maneuver. Diamond burner loop with a right turnout. And the pilot will acknowledge that. Then I'll say, run them up, smoke on, and then we'll execute the maneuver. I will share with what's going on as this video play. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and play it. It's about 5 minutes long, so I'll talk through it. And if you need me to stop, then let me know and I'll cut it short. But there's 2 maneuvers that I show. One is the loop on takeoff, and the second one is flying inverted. Because I talk about that because sometimes your life will throw you a curveball. You may find yourself upside down in your life, and there are certain things you have to do in order to right the situation. So with that said, let me roll it for you.
Do you have it, the sound up?
Can you guys hear it?
No.
Okay. Uh-oh. I tell you what, I will just communicate what's going on, and that way, I wish I could get there. I think there's something I have to do it, but I'll just talk through it, and that way you'll understand what's happening. How about that?
That's fine.
Okay. Okay. What I'm doing right now, I'm looking at my instrument. My aircraft is ready to go. I look over at number three, make sure he's good. Two is looking at four. When he's ready, he's going to give a thumbs up. When we're ready, I'm going to turn the smoke on, release the brake, plug in out the burner. When we do that, the smoke disappears. Now we're rolling down the runway at 50 knots. Say, and now I'm waiting to set the attitude. I set the attitude, for get airborne. Okay, once it's off that, I say little drive, and we're leveling off to accelerate to have enough airspeed to take it up. You hear me? But I would say up we go. It up about 90 degrees nose up, depending on the temperature. I will come out of afterburner in the you'll start in the coming back on.
Whoa, I feel like I'm in the plane with you.
So that's about 90 degrees. There is smoke right there, barely. Now I'm slowing the airplane down so I won't generate too much speed flying toward the ground.
Wow.
And at the bottom, we're gonna off the smoke off, and we'll set up.
Wow.
Okay, that is the first verse, and the second one, real quick. What we're doing now is we're running through some inverted checks. The aircraft is in the background. He's going to fly inverted with me. We're flying 380 knots, 300 feet above the ground, and this is that's about 430 some miles an hour, or miles an hour. So we're
Wow.
setting up. I'm looking at the runway. I'm roll it out, and I'll set us up rolling there.
Hmm.
That's flying inverted. Now you'll see the number two and three airplane. They'll come in, and they're in formation there. And number four, he's inverted flying formation with me. And so we're flying along for several seconds. And when the number two pilot, he's gonna call it, and that's how we come out of the maneuver.
There's a question when you keep rolling if you like, but there a question is asking, are you controlling the jet manually or is it automatic?
Everything is done manually. You're flying the aircraft yourself. The computers in the airplane are designed to make the aircraft fly more efficiently, but at the end of the day, you're controlling all the movements. And the way it occurs, and I'm sorry about the audio, but you would hear the audio. There's a dialogue that's going on between the pilots, and that's how you stay synchronized. Because if you waited to see movement on the aircraft, you can get out of sync. So we communicated over the radios to stay synchronized as we made those maneuvers flying that close together.
Okay, wow. Keep going with the
Okay.
video. Yes.
That is the end of the video.
Okay.
What I normally do is I talk about Center Point and shared values and trust, but this is the one where we talk about the 5 C's. So if you want me to go right into it,
I
I
would
will.
love
But
for you to go right into it. And
okay.
for those who are just joining us on Facebook land, we are talking to Captain Donnie Cochran, who was one of the Blue Angels pilots and commanders. And so he was sharing with an actual video footage of him being in one position, which is the actual number one position, commanding the squadron team of other Blue Angels to be in synchronized formation to do a variety of different maneuvers. One is the inverted flip where they are flying at a 90-degree angle, which felt like I was right with them. And it was so cool and so amazing. I want to do it again. We ought to should pay people to be a part of that virtual stimulation. Oh my God, I'm telling you, it's so cool. So, and right now, Commander Cochran is going to share with us the 5 C's, because one of the things he shared with us was that they could not do the work that they did inside of those planes without these other elements that he's going to explain. All right. So he's getting ready to share with us the 5 C's. Get your pens ready and let's rock and roll.
All right. Thank you so much, Doc. Well, first of all, we were flying 36 inches wing tip to canopy. How do I know? Well, I can tell you that when I flew the number 3 jet, this is the number 3 jet, I'm flying probably 2 feet away from the number 1 wingtip. And that's because in order to get this formation look from the ground, we have to fly cheated positions in order for it to look this way. So, and then I had a chance I flew this one for 2 years, this one for 1 year, and one for 18 months. So out of those 4 positions, I flew 3 of them. So what did I learn as a result of being in those positions that apply to fatherhood or apply to leadership or apply to team building or apply to individual accountability? I think they're all interrelated, and the questions, in order for us to fly that close together, we were asking each other a series of questions, and I call them the 5 C's and an A. And the first question that was being asked, and by the way, these were not verbal questions. These were questions that would evaluate your behavior, your attitude, your performance, and they were nonverbal. But your actions speak volume to where you were when you look at this formation. So with that said, I'll say this: the first question that was being asked was a question about your character, and the question was, do you walk your talk? Do you do what you say you're gonna do when you say you're gonna do it?
Mm.
And by the way, that was a question that was being asked not just when you were flying, but when you were outside of the cockpit as well. When you were in a non-family setting, do you live up to the character? And one of the things that's important was um, a a a crisis will put a squeeze on your character. I mean, it's
Mm.
tempting to not do the right thing when you're under a lot of pressure. That's whenever you have to dig deep in order to do what you say you're going to do, especially when you have competing priorities. You got things that do at work, and then your kid needs you to come show up for what he's doing. You have to balance that. And because they're checking out, they're looking at the character question too. Your kids are. So that's the first C. The next C was competency. And the question we're being asked by everyone in the formation was, do you have the skills and know-how to do your job successfully and efficiently? Well, another aspect of it was, in order to get to the level where you needed to be, the question became, do you have mastery of the skills to do your job, and do you have capacity to bring added value? Well, capacity could be you're the type person that show up, that has a positive attitude.
Mm.
That's added value, because a lot of people don't show up. They come into the room and they suck the life out of it. If you're the type person that walk into the room, walk into your family situation, and your kids light up because you're there, you need to capture that. You need to make sure that they know that that's vitally important for their success in life, to be able to maintain those positive, engaging attitudes as they're dealing with the challenges of life. And that's what we had to do in this formation. And I learned this: when you achieve mastery level performance,
Mm,
you're not asking, can I? You're asking, how can I?
mm,
When you get to a level of expertise where you're like, hey, you got mastery of, you're not worried about whether you can do it or not. I mean, if I was just hanging on, I'm not asking, oh, how can I be more? I'm like hanging on. Can I do it? But once I get to a point where I have the mastery, now I'm thinking, well, how can I be more creative?
mm.
How can I be more innovative? So that's important to remember as you're dealing with the issues of life. So the next question that is being asked in this formation was one about your commitment. And that is, will you be there when the going gets rough? And
Mm.
trust me, a lot of times when we were flying, we ran through turbulent air. And the formation was very unstable, and it was, I mean, it would get your attention because you're flying so close. But you want to know, are you going to hang in there? And your kids want to know, are you going to hang in there when mom and dad are having challenges, or are you going to bail out?
Mm.
And the same was the case for us in the formation. Hey, we want to know, hey, are you going to hang in there because when things are rough, or are you going to bail out on us in the formation? So, and keep in mind, what you can't see here, we're flying about 150 feet from the ground. So there's not much room for you to bail out. It's actually 200 feet, but that wingtip is probably 150 feet from the ground. So
Gee.
the next question is, and this is number 5, and that is communications. And this is what I learned flying the number 4 jet on communication. Uh, our communication, if you were able to hear the communication, is clear, concise, and direct communications. But I learned when I was flying the number 4 position that that's not good enough. Not only do you have to be clear, concise, and direct, but do you use an uplifting emotional tone of voice when
Mm.
you communicate? Because keep in mind, everybody's working hard, and I learned this when I was flying 3 for 2 years. If I heard number 4, because he communicated, and it was sort of a harsh or demanding communication, I was like, man, I was briefly out of position. Now he's yapping on the radios, and that didn't inspire me. And but most of the time, he was very inspiring in that position, and that's when I said, okay, when I'm in this role, I'm going to make sure that I am uplifting, positive. Now, keep in mind, there are times when you have to be very direct, but most of the time, you have to be very inspiring and uplifting in your communication, and that was one of the keys that I learned flying that number 4 position. And the last C, it could be either courage or cohesion, but I'll go with courage. And the question that we're asking in that is and each pilot is asking that question, and that is, what area of my performance do I have to take bold action? I mean, I have to look at my performance and take ownership for the gaps in performance. And that's what we have to do as fathers. And that is, what are we doing that we could do better to help our kids, to help our family, to help our wife? I mean, we have to look at ourselves and make that case. And then have the courage to take ownership for what you need to do and make it happen. And so those are the 5 C's. And I said there was an A. And the A stands for accountability.
Mm.
And what you're simply asking there is this. Um, and you're evaluating, when I was leader, I had to evaluate myself and those reporting to me. And so if your kids are not necessarily aligned with where they should be, then you have to hold them accountable. And
Mm.
so for us, what it meant was, what area of your performance do you need to hold yourself and others accountable for their performance, their attitudes, their behaviors,
Mm.
and actions? It is a 360-degree evaluation, because you could have someone that's a great performer that has a rotten attitude, and
Ugh.
that will just suck the life out of any type of environment, whether it's a team environment, a family environment, work environment, doesn't matter. So that's essentially what the 5 C's are, and how I relate them to the leadership aspect of it. You can evaluate leadership, team building, individual accountability, or even a family. I think it's vitally important that that you take ownership for where you are as a person. And if you're very blessed to be a father, being in a position to make sure that your family, and especially your kids, have something that they can take away from you as their father.
Mm. Listen, if you guys are just chiming in, you're listening to Captain Donnie Cochran, who is one of the Blue Angels, not just fighters and flyers and pilots. He was one of the commanders as well. And so we got a chance to see him, hear him, and talk about. I mean, I still feel like I'm in the air with him. And I just think it's just powerful to just hear. And I had so many questions as you were just talking. The other three, and this is, not necessarily an off topic, but the other three pilots that were they also African Americans or no?
No, no, I was the first African American pilot to fly with the team, and fortunate to be first African American flight leader.
Did
The
you guys hear that?
four
Like,
had
whoa, that is like major. I just want to pause for just a second. I know we're not the talk, I know we're not the view, but this is the LDL view, okay? And so I just want to take a pause for just a moment that we are interviewing. We have the opportunity to collaborate informationally, intellectually tonight, right now, or wherever you are watching around the world. Captain Donnie Cochran, who was the first, oh my God, African. Can you imagine that we're still talking about the first of anything, but the first African American to fly with the Blue Angels and commander, the first commander to do so. Okay, go right ahead. Speaking of which, because I can't bypass this topic, sir, we're in a highly volatile, very society that is filled with lots of micro and macro aggressions.
Mhm.
Racism is everywhere. You grew up in an era where it was very prevalent. How did you deal with that level of pressure? Like you said, I love the way you said it, that crisis will squeeze your character if you're not
Yeah.
careful. How did you keep all of that under control, being the first Black man to do such a serious feat? How did you handle that?
Okay. Well, let me start with when I was applying for the Blue Angels. First of all, I was well aware that if I was fortunate enough to be selected, I would be the first African American pilot to fly with the team. But that was not necessarily the driver for me. The driver for me is like it is for most of the pilots is I wanted to be a part of a very special organization.
Mm,
And I had the awareness to know that if I was selected, I would be the first. But that was not the driver. What
gotcha.
I did do, however, is I prepared myself. I said to my, I said, with my luck, I might be picked. So I want to make sure I'm ready for this. And so, and that's a positive way to look at it, right?
Yes.
So what I did was I actually flew to Montgomery, Alabama, to Maxwell Air Force Base, which is only 30 miles from Tuskegee. And the cradle of black aviation is Tuskegee Airmen. And this
Yes.
is 1986 and 85, I'm sorry. And I knew if I was selected, there was a good chance I was going to see lots of the living Tuskegee Airmen all around the country. And I did. And I wanted to have that grounding, that aspect of being of the people that went before me to make
Yes.
sure that that history that a lot of people try to shy away from these days, but you got to have that history in order to appreciate where you are and where you're going. And so that was a driver. Now, in order to get to the Blue Angels, I had to be operating off carriers, and I did about 5 or 6 of them: the USS Nimitz, the USS Enterprise, the Ranger, the Kitty Hawk. I mean, these are the ships that I deployed on,
Well, listen,
and
I
I
read a Kitty Hawk, so the Kitty Hawk is a big deal. Now I know a little bit something about that Kitty Hawk. So when you said the Kitty Hawk, I said he's a big deal person. So listen, everybody. Oh my gosh,
now
that
what's
is like
interesting
amazing
is
to me. Oh, we got a Kitty Hawk.
okay. What's interesting is on board those ships were 300 or 400 aviators, and
Mm,
most of the time there was probably one or two, maybe 3 or 4 African American flying airplanes, and invariably there would be only one or two that were flying fighter jets,
mm,
and so you were already in a very pressure environment. I mean, flying off the ship day and night is in itself is very unforgiving if you're not don't have it together. And oh, by the way, I have 888 carrier landings, and about a third of those at night. So I'm truly glad to be here, to say the least. But but this but this the point I'm making is when you're part of an environment where you're one of only one or two out of three or 400, you're not focusing on me. You're very much aware of who you are as an African American. If not, somebody's going to remind you of that. But the most important thing was, what are you doing to make sure that you're doing the job at the highest level? Now, what's interesting about that, people say, well, you got to deliver. You got to be at the top of your game. You got to deliver. Well, if the environment is not there for you to do it, it's very difficult to be able to perform at the highest level if there's dynamic in the environment that's keeping you from being the best of who you are or who you could be. So you have to navigate those challenges. What's interesting about the ship was it was a great equalizer. You either had it or you didn't, and if you didn't, it showed.
Mm.
And so that was a challenge. And once you're able to establish a certain amount of skills and competency, now you're in a position to apply for something like the Blue Angel. And this is what I will say about the climate in our country today, or well, it was even tougher then in certain aspects. I think it's more open now than it was in the past, more than anything. But what's interesting was this, and that is there had to be some white guys that decided, or someone different than me, that they wanted someone like me to be on the team because I went through the selection process. I don't know what their discussions were, but I know what it was when I was part of the selection team. And I can tell you this, that you had to convince some people that don't look like you that you deserve an opportunity to be a part of the team.
Wow.
And so I look at it on part of me saying, well, things are real tough, but I'll be the first person to tell you that you don't hope, don't lose hope, because go to a team like the Blue Angels twice is like lightning striking twice in the same spot. Is very rarely does it happen, and so I'm very blessed. And I always say this. I always say summarize me talking to you with this statement. That is, um, I survived those 888 carrier landings. I flew about 300 air shows and practice air shows. I've flown fighter jets at 380 knots, 300 feet above the ground about 600 times, probably more than that, because you practice three or four of them at a time. Uh, and I survived the corporate world, and I'm here now. And I didn't survive all of that so I can sit around and twiddle my thumbs and look back and say, oh, pat myself on the back. I think I survived it to be able to share the unique lessons learned of that journey. And so the most important thing that people like myself and you can do is to make sure that we make a meaningful difference in the lives of the people that we encounter.
Mm.
And so that is, I mean, there's so much work to be done in our cities, in our state, in our country, that if you're a person with good intention, you can't sit on the sidelines and hope things get better. You have to get engaged, even if it is being a better father or a better dad, a better husband to your family. It starts there and then you work out. And if you can do more, do more.
Well, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking like, well, first of all, my team know, and probably Facebook land knows too. I'm already thinking like two things down the road. Like I've already got a whole nother thing involved with my alma mater, which is UC Berkeley. And I've been a part of the alumni. I was a director of alumni stuff, and they've since recently reached out for me to get back involved and do some stuff. But I want to get back involved on my terms and bring you as we get back involved on that. And I'm just thinking about the power of history. Like it really hit me to hear you. And we had the first Black woman pilot here. We've been fortunate through an amazing orchestration of Miss Brenda Moppins and the events team. They just gather all these powerful powerhouse women and men of extraordinary great feats. And it just really landed on me, sir. Like, this is history in the making. So we have got to have you to come back. We've got to document it. We've got to create our own documentaries. I have a show called Live with Lakita. That's a talk show. We have 8 episodes. And so for the second round of season 2, I want you to get on the show, and we actually have live TV, real TV, and even if we have to come to you and do a documentary about the journey, like it really has to be chronicled and really just out there for people to know. And I love how you're not willing to stick to where the climate was. You flew to a place to get prepared. Like that did something massive inside of my narrative mindset. Like you went so you can go talk to others who have done it before, which tells me, tells you, tells everyone out there, you cannot forget from whence you've come. And
Right.
you must go back so that you can learn. Absolutely.
Here is a side story here. So I told you I flew into Montgomery, Alabama, right?
Yes.
Well, Maxwell Air Force is in Montgomery, and it's in the South. So I was an instructor pilot in the F-14 replacement squadron, and I had an African American uh, pilot in the back. He was a student, and he was flying in the back, and we landed in Montgomery, and the service personnel was a white gentleman. He was out taking the airplane, and he looked up and he saw me, and then he looked back and he saw Marco, and he had this look like, well, who was flying the plane? It was so funny.
Right. And you probably it was me. It was me, bro. It was
you know,
me. Right.
you have those encounters, and you take it in stride, and like I said, the attitude portion is so important to success. It is one of the starting points. I use this phrase too. I created this acronym called, when people ask me, well, what did you have to do personally to get to all the challenges? And I say, I had to have I had to create ACE. You know, ACE stands for fighter pilots that are victorious in air-to-air combat. Well, I was not an ace in that regard, but I created an ace attitude to help me achieve my goals. And so, what I mean by that is, I challenge you as an individual to create 3 words or 1 or 2 words that when you think about those, it gives you the best opportunity to be the best of who you are, who you could be.
Mm.
And for me, it was ACE, and that stands for attitude, character, and enthusiasm. I know that if I show up every day with an ACE attitude, I'm going to give myself the best opportunity to be successful that day. And so what did it mean? Well, attitude. Well, I mean, the attitude we talked about. Never underestimate the power of a positive and engaging attitude. Notice you got to have the attitude that's upbeat, but also the engagement, which is positive action to go along with it. And what is it? It is your ability to maintain the belief that you can transform a tough situation into something better. And it's not enough for you as an individual to show up with that attitude, but you're responsible for each other, the people around you, to be uplifting to them as well. And I use this quote here, Doc. You might want to write this one down. It's a good one, and that is, your positive attitude is the only means of converting your failures and setbacks into assets or benefits.
Mm.
Isn't that wonderful?
Say it one more
Uh,
time.
your positive attitude is the only means of converting your failures and setbacks into assets or benefits. That's huge because all of us are going to have failures. All of us are going to have setbacks. And how do you extract the lessons learned from those mistakes, from those lessons learned, will set you up for the success that you started out for in the beginning. And so that's what I try to focus about. And if you're working as part of a team, you have to remember this aspect of attitude, and that is a bad attitude will sink a team. It only takes one. I mean, you can have 15 people and one bad attitude could just poison the whole organization. And so that's how vitally important it is to maintain that attitude as we go through our life journey.
Listen,
And I,
and people that know me, I believe, and I have a little bit of I have something called the Lakita factor, and it stands for something that I firmly believe about the Lakita factor. But people know if you are not sober minded, what are the three core values? Being
right,
sober minded. What else? Being disciplined and
right.
being intentional. Now, come on here. So the LDL Empowerment Institute, we live by it because you really can't move and live and breathe without sobriety. Sobriety keeps us with clarity. Clarity gives us an opportunity to focus on creativity. So if there's no sobriety, there's no clarity, and you cannot be creative. So without that, then you sort of strangle your discipline. And I'm just so excited. I'm like, oh, we got to get you to be speaking at these high schools and all these different places and be intentional about our action. Like, I'm so inspired right now about attitude and character and about the whole aspect of enthusiasm. I believe, and people know, those that are rocking with me, the team members, that we have 6 a.m. meetings, do we not, sister girls? We have 6 a.m. meetings. so and they are bright and just like right now at 6 a.m. And so I'm fortunate to be around some amazing leaders. And I think you said it very well. And so for those who are just watching, you've been listening to Captain Donnie Cochran of the Blue Angels. He's really braced us and given us so much powerful information. You need to replay this. You need to download it. It's going to be on our YouTube channel. You need to get with someone else and learn about what he was talking about. It's life lessons for everyone, but he was talking about the power of being a father. And actually, he talked about the restorative way of which you can bring the value of fatherhood back. And he talked about being a son. He talked about having a mentor that he looked to in his father. But he really talked about taking your own medicine and being committed to your own process. I really love that. Listen, we want to give you the spotlight for just a few moments and to be able to share your last thoughts with the rest of our audience. And then after we're done with that, we're going to say bye-bye to our Facebook fans, but we're going to stay for a few moments with our Zoom land folks so they can be able to ask those personalized questions. All right, Captain Cochran, you are on.
Okay. Well, I hope you don't mind me plugging this book.
Plug it
It's
in.
it's called Glad to Be Here. And a lot of what you've heard is what I spoke to out of the book. But one of the things that I always say toward the end of talk that I give, and that is, I used to say with a great deal of passion that you must pay the cost to achieve your goals. But life has taught me you don't pay the cost, you enjoy the journey. You pay the cost if you don't achieve your personal goals. You pay the
Love that.
cost if you don't figure out how to have a balance between your work life and your professional life. But you enjoy the cost that it takes for you to have a successful and enjoyable life. The other aspect of it is it would be easy for me to say that, after flying with the Blue Angels twice, working at Coca-Cola and UPS and 24-year career, that, hey, look, I'm pretty much done. And I learned this: you should always have something great to look forward to because the best is yet to come.
Mm.
Thank you.
Well, listen, you have heard it from our guest and hey, he was our teacher, our trainer today. I am just honored. I have a whole newfound respect, love. He is my new uncle. Yes, he is. Meet Uncle Captain Donnie Cochran. Yes, in Jesus' name. We're so excited when we make our way to where you're at, because he's 3 hours ahead of us. So he took his nap before so he can be well ready to rock and roll. I'll be in Atlanta in a couple of weeks, actually, and we'll be hanging out with the sister girls out there. And we're going to turn up Atlanta, Georgia. I mean, the flyer is flaming out there already. We're going to land like we flew the plane ourselves. And so hopefully we get a chance to connect with you, sir. But for those of you who have been our Facebook family and for coming on tonight, thank you so much for joining us. And those who are in that Zoom land, you stay put for just a few moments. But Facebook, we've got to say goodbye. God bless you. And remember, beloved, we wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as your soul prosper. God bless you and God keep you is our earnest prayer. Amen.